Welcome to Cambridge House Live. I'm Vanessa Collette here at the Canadian Investor Conference, Toronto. I'm thrilled to have Bill Muprhy back with us again, financial commentator with Le Metropole Cafe, and also chairman of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. It's great to see you again, Bill.
Good to see you, young lady.
Now, Bill, it's been a few days since your Boston Patriot days, but what stage of the game are we in right now with gold? What do you see happening?
Well, I'm trying to figure out how I can compare the two.
Sports analogy.
All I know is you get beat up in football, and the gold and silver people have been beat up here. And
right.
As we all know, it's been years of a tough sledding, and there's no sign of a let-up.
Right. Now, what's been going on with this LIBOR scandal? What's the latest?
Well, the LIBOR scandal was about interest rates in England, set in England, and it turned out to be a big market manipulation, a thing that God has been talking about in gold and silver for forever. And now there's things in the currency markets about the same thing rigging there. Basically, we've come to learn, first of all, that we initially thought the rigging of the gold and silver market was just bullion banks. Then we realized it was much bigger than we thought.
Bigger than
and
bullion
now
banks.
we realize it's not just bigger than the bullion banks, it's central banks, and that also involves all markets.
Okay.
They're everywhere.
Now with, I guess the German banks pulled out of the London fix, you're seeing a lot more pressure from politicians in London for more transparency in London. What do you say about that?
Well, from a GATA standpoint, I mean that is a good thing, but it's rinky-dink compared to what about the overall rigging of the gold price, what's going on in the COMEX, how they interfere in the markets. I mean, we have it all documented and so on. That's what GATA does. That's the real story. Changing the gold fix here and there, yes, it'll make a difference to certain players, but in terms of the overalls, they're missing the whole story. It's like nothing compared to the real story of the rigging process.
So what's the real story?
The real story is that the gold price has been being manipulated by central banks and bullion banks. They have an agenda. I've never seen anything like what's going on since September started.
Okay.
Every day they're there.
So this is something different you haven't seen before in the last month.
Well, we've seen it for the 16 years I've been at this, but this has been the most intense day-to-day interference, and especially in the silver market.
So there's a new silver fix. Is that why?
No, I mean, as I mentioned to you earlier, I've been around this for 40 years. I never heard anyone talk about the silver fix. Now, the PM fix in gold's a big deal.
Right.
That's where most of all your contracts are. Not that the silver fix isn't very important. I just never heard anybody mention it. So it's a non-factor as far as I'm concerned, yeah.
So how does this new settlement system in Shanghai affect all of this?
Well, as most people know, that China buying a lot of gold, and they're setting up all these exchanges, and it's supposedly going to be physical markets, and it's going to be a big deal. But it's a process; it takes time. And I had to laugh because just this past week they announced who the supervisory committee was of this new exchange in Shanghai. And I saw the list, and it's all the bad guys. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Barrick Gold, Deutsche Bank. I mean, they're everywhere. They're over there, too. So whether that'll have an impact, I don't know. But it was very disturbing to see all the names of the Hall of Shame, as I would call it, all showing up in China in some way.
Right. Now, you mentioned silver. We just saw silver hit a 4-year low. So why is that?
Well, that's a good question, because there's a lot of things in silver don't make any sense. I mean, it's been going down for months, and it goes down every day. It broke a top formation, which technically is the worst thing I think I've ever seen. It's been straight down ever since.
You follow the technicals as well?
Well, I see what's going on. At the time, I said, this is the worst looking thing I've ever seen. But there's two things that are really important here. Something very sinister is going on in silver. And there's two ways that I would focus on that. One is the open interest is just recently went near historic highs, where the gold interest was not far from 5-year lows. Somebody is piling in and piling in and piling. Normally, when you've got a market that's below the cost of production, it's going down and down and down, the interest evaporates. Who is going out of their way to sell this much here? And to give you an idea how sinister it is, there's this thing called the access market, which opens up around 6 p.m. New York time, and this is after the COMEX closes. it's opened up lower, something like 54 times in a row and 104 out of 108 times.
Okay.
This is what's being done to this market. No market has ever traded like this in history. Never. Something is that wrong.
Why do you think we're seeing the gold and silver prices so far below the average all-in cost of production? I mean, how can it be sustainable?
Well, it's not sustainable in the long run, but short term, there's an agenda here to take these things in oblivion, and we don't have time to get into what all the potential reasons why.
Right.
But it's clear that some people want it down. Now, maybe it's so that they can cover, but it's relentless.
And what would you like to see in a gold price setting system? Just no system at all?
Free markets.
Free markets.
That's what God is all about. We're just asking for free markets, transparency, and integrity. And there's none of that in the gold and silver markets.
How do we get there? Is it possible?
Well, that's what God tries to do. We come to conferences like this. We've had 4 of our own conferences. You know some of the people that we've had around us, like John Emery and Eric Sprott and all kinds of people, and Jim Sinclair, and even Jim Rickards, our former adversary, spoke at our conference in London. So,
Okay.
you know, we're out there doing what we can to let people know what's going on.
Now, Bill, we have some fantastic viewer questions I really want to get to here.
Shoot.
One of them is from Adam Astro. He asks, does GATA have any indications that Chinese interests are complicit in COMEX paper rates?
You know, there's a lot of people, really smart people, that think that way. I don't personally think that's the case, although a lot of people do.
Okay.
And it very well could be, but it's all speculation. And it's a great question, but nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. I mean, there's people that think that they're the longs on the silver. I mean, it could be, but maybe not. We'll find out if the open interest gets flushed out.
Right.
But are they trying to get it down? All I know is they're very secret about what they do, so we won't know.
Okay. Our next question is from Sam Lau. He wants to know, Bill, what's your opinion on the potential influence of the Shanghai Gold Exchange on gold prices globally?
Well, as we briefly talked about, eventually it's going to be a big deal, and they won't be able to do I don't think anyway, what they're doing right now on the COMEX and so on and get away with it so easily, but that's going to take time.
Okay. So it's going to eventually send the price of gold up or
Well,
down?
it'll eventually make it fair in the sense that the physical market will become more of the ruler versus the paper market, the derivatives market, which is on the COMEX, which is running everything right now.
Our next question is, do you believe China and Russia are acquiring gold to later back their currencies with commodities?
That would make sense. We know that the Russians know what GATA knows. Andrei Bykov, a key consultant to Putin, has been to 2 of our conferences. We know the Chinese know what GATA knows. We know that they've been accumulating, gold. So it would make sense at some time, especially if there's some sort of reset, let's say, where it could be done after they've got all the gold that they wanted.
So it would take a reset in order for that to happen?
No, but I mean, they're doing it for a reason. They know what GATA knows. They know it's undervalued. They know our central banks in the West have been hoarding gold. It's leased out or gone. Nobody knows how much gold the U.S. has. No audit in 55 years.
Wow.
They won't even answer GATA's questions. If you have 8,000 tons of gold sitting there, what is there not to talk about? It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But they won't.
Well, my last question is, we've talked before about JP Morgan, I think you were saying, running out of physical supply in order to be able to do this manipulation that you say. What makes you say that, and what's your theory there?
Well, my theory was that JP Morgan bought up the physical market when it was much higher priced, and because that's when the market was very tight. But they went short derivatives 5 to 10 times that. So then when they were ready to bomb the market and doing it, they had the physical supply to hit the market. And yes, they lost some of the physical, but they made zillion times more money on all these derivatives. And they've had it. Now, my theory is at some point, and maybe that's why we're seeing this pressure, they're going to run out. And when they run out, this is when silver goes bonkers, goes towards 100, and goes it in very volatile fashion. So right now,
big moves.
Big moves. Right now it's negative. It's going to explode. There's something terribly wrong, and it's going to blow up. That I'm sure of.
You heard it here. Great to see you again, Bill, and
Good
have you
to
on
see
the
you,
show.
Vanessa. Thank you.